You spent your entire life in the NBA. You're the worst possible messenger. People are going to think, if Elgin was really so unhappy, why didn't he just leave?
With the stain on me from this team's reputation, where was I going to go? You can understand that.
What's up, kiddos? You're listening to Let's Talk Clipped. Ramona Shelburne isn't able to host today's episode, so I will be taking over. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm the host of ESPN Daily, and I'm a huge fan of the series, so I'm excited to dig in. Today, we're going to talk about the fourth episode of the series, Winning Ugly. This flashes back to a few different moments in the lives of our characters. First, a young Doc Rivers playing for the Clippers is distraught after LA police brutally beat Rodney King. Later, a young Vince Diviano is trying to break into the entertainment industry, and Shelley Sterling is considering divorce. My guests today are Kelly AuCoin, who plays Andy Roeser, and Kevin Bray, who directed the episode. Kelly and Kevin, welcome.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
To start with, and I'll start with you, Kevin, what interested you most about this particular story?
Just the kind of insight into how Sterling got where he was, how everyone found their way to becoming the characters they were. So that was kind of the inciting incident of curiosity for me. I also liked the idea that we were going to kind of break the aesthetic of the show and had so much freedom to create this thing that was completely outside the vernacular of the way we were shooting the show. Actually, that's probably the most exciting point for me because I got to make a little movie inside the limited series that is clipped. It's like a Russian doll, you know?
Nesting doll.
Yeah.
Kelly?
For me, I think it's probably obvious, and for anyone who's seen the episode, it's just a great fucking scene.
It's a termination letter.
No. You're still part of the organization. It's a new role, a transition.
Transition to making half my salary so you can use my name without having to hear my voice.
I got to work with Clifton Davis, who's a legend. He and I talked about it during and after, and it was such a long scene. It was just the two of us. And very few times were we stopped. You know, we were allowed to drive through the whole scene a number of times, and that's rare for something so long. And both of us who have theater backgrounds were like, hey, this was great. This was kind of like a play. And so I loved working with him, and I loved getting to the meat of what makes Andy, our version of Andy, tick. And it feels like an inflection point, you know, like where he does something, you can tell he does something that he doesn't think is completely right, but he's made his deal with the devil, and this is sort of where he's all in, I think.
I think one of the things you captured well was that sense of kind of willful ignorance as to the real lives of Black people, and Elgin Baylor having to be the one that delivered it.
When I get the feeling down, you know what I do? I look in the mirror and I say to myself, you know how lucky you are to have had this incredible career in the NBA?
You were 25 when you started with the Clippers. What had you accomplished? Good grades? You are lucky. I was...
No. True. Bad comparison.
Like, oh, come on, there's this, there's that. And I'm like, dude, I want to punch this guy in the face right now.
Oh, I
know?
want to. I want to punch myself in the face a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the writing and the direction. They let us play. I think they saw that we had a handle on what that vibe was. Mm. Also, this was the main audition scene. So a year before, because there was some delays before we got started, a year before I auditioned with it, and the lines I could memorize like so easily, which is the mark of great writing. Huh. The vibe of it was just so apparent to me. He's a character who's like, I'm going to eat shit and I'm going to love it because I'm with this impressive man, Donald Sterling. And that means being his lapdog for all of these things. You can tell he knows things are wrong, but you also can tell he finds something impressive about it. It's a really weird balance I think Andy has.
There is a revelation of how he got to be who he is when he climbs up the side of the Malibu mountain and expresses his concern about the 2013 situation. But I felt like I had some sympathy for him. He's so gobsmacked when Elgin says,
Call him and tell him I'm going to sue.
Sue? For what?
Unlawful termination.
No, Elgin, you're not being fired.
Racial discrimination for years.
Like, you have to be actively anti-racist. You can't be just like, I have Black friends,
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
And so that, I think, is this guy not being actively anti-racist and getting the life that he has acquired, hitting from the ladies' tees, like not realizing that he's advantaged and thinking he's not part of the problem. But then also you did it in a way that you're kind of sympathetic, like, I wanted to punch him, but I also was like, I guess maybe I just experienced so many people like that in my life, particularly coming from the Midwest. And so it's just a really interesting and nuanced between thing about bigotry or racism or passive racism or something like that.
Yeah, professional bootlicking is definitely a job. I'm from D.C., so I know a lot of this in a different regard in terms of how people move up in the world professionally and operationally. And so that really read.
I spent half my life in D.C. I hear you. It's so easy, I think, for people to, if it's the path of least resistance, to not quite see things. And even though 25% of their brain is aware that they're deliberately fuzzing out the edges, I think that's what some of the writing for this character captured for a lot of the people on the team.
One of the things I loved about this particular episode, and in general, is the usage of archival footage as a way to indicate the passage of time, but also the vibe of the moment. And, in the flashback element of this with Doc, where he's looking back on what his life was like during the riots and talking with his father, and I don't want to say picking a fight with his wife, but kind of getting into it in front of the kids. Dad's in there smoking on the couch. Like there's something that the newsreel element provides and then switches to the personal side of it that I think is fascinating. And I do want to know what you were trying to get to in terms of humanizing the character of Doc with that juxtaposition of him remembering, sleeping on the plane, all of that stuff in between. It's a flashback, but those all have purposes. What were the purposes there other than just random storytelling?
It wasn't random. I think it was to give context. And in fact, it was like sometimes, fashion is function. Maybe that doesn't make any sense, but like that was the most efficient way for us. We actually tried to create an environment that was in some of the earlier drafts. We shot some material where we tried to emulate or recreate a sliver of what was going on in the streets. And it was just very difficult, and it was not as authentic as I thought it should have been. And I don't think Gina thought that it was and, it's hard to remember how the stock footage came in. I know that script was a lot more sprawling. We were dealing with the whole city, and then, the reality of budgeting came in, and we had to contract it. But for me, I got the job in an interesting way in which you have to do a presentation and a pitch and write a document and then go in front of the whole of the network and get assigned the job. And I had been maybe avoiding, for some reason, attaching my passion to this project in my presentation. And one of the folks from Color Force, Brad Simpson, coaching me through the process is like, you need to connect yourself more to this thing in this document that you're presenting. And then I realized that Doc reminded me of my grandfather. My grandfather's name is Conklin Burkhart Bray. He's passed in 2018.
What a name.
He was born in Chicago to a mixed race mother and a black father in 1918. And they named him Conklin because Conklin was part of Abraham Lincoln's cabinet and supposedly a big advocate of the abolition of slavery movement. And Burkhart is the B in W.E.B. Du Bois. So obviously they were creating their little race man, you know what I mean? And then he eventually went on to work with Ralph Bunche and be involved in the NAACP very aggressively, and was a career educator and was a very prominent individual in Detroit's ascendance as a Black Power city. And I realized how much of him was about this intention that if I just go down the straight road and I just learn how to speak properly and I get this job and I'm like a real viable part of society, the bigotry will slip off of me. It won't happen. And Doc reminded me of like one of the last vestiges of that before we get to like Allen Iverson, like where we're at this like, fuck this shit. It's never going to change. And I have no respect for any of you because don't smile in my face, which is kind of what this whole story is about. So connecting to Doc Rivers through my grandfather and a lot of the men in my family, it exploded my thinking about the show. And then ultimately, when I presented it in that way, it was received very, very well. I mean, I know Lawrence from Blackish. We did a lot of work together. And there's a familial kind of paternal thing between he and I. Like, he reminds me of family, like he's just got his presentation. And so that thread is through the whole show. And so this was the backstory to a certain kind of prototypical black man that I am very familiar with.
Along those lines, did you have any pause in using the word nigga in your script?
Remember that summer I put you in that expensive-ass basketball camp? I come home from patrol, and you was crying.
I don't remember crying.
You was crying, talking some. You didn't want to go back because them white boys was calling you nigger.
Nobody called me that before.
And what'd I tell you?
I better show them who this nigga is.
You goddamn right.
The reason I bring that up is because in this particular scene, there's the way people say that word who are trying to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
There's the way people say that word when people are reading off of a page. Then there's a way that black people say that word to each other when they in the house or in the backyard. It is very clear that this was the last of those categories, but that wasn't necessarily in the flow of kind of everything we'd seen from Doc, never mind his dad.
Right. My grandfather never used that word. He never swore. And none of his siblings and the grands do. And it's funny the way that Doc's father said it. It's like, is he replaying it? Or does he say it like that? Is he uncomfortable to use the word? Like, I'm never going to use that word. I'm not going to degrade myself to that because he may be from that generation. That was a decision he made as an actor. But it is like that one moment when the dad says it for me was always like, ooh, what's he doing? But at the same time, I'm like, so what? This happens. And it hurt in maybe a good way to see that from the dad. Because you got right to the story he was telling, what he was recounting. And you got really to what was the crux of Doc's angst from that little bit of storytelling. And then particularly because of who we have as the storyteller. And it was a very diverse group of people doing this show. So you start to self-monitor for censorship. Like, can we do this? And I would hope that we can.
Staying in that scene, the one part that really, I think, kind of hit home was I was in high school when OJ happened. And I remember the parts that scene hit hardest for me were just random white folks being nice to Doc for no real reason. Mm-hmm. And that culminates, rather, with the neighbor Susan coming over and bringing oranges.
Oh, hi, I'm Susan. Oh, it's awful. I had to get in the backyard and just pick.
Susan, more oranges.
Is it oppressive?
That he ends up later firing his fastballs into the back of his, rim. What was the significance of the oranges? I mean, in The Godfather, oranges mean somebody's going to die. But in this particular case, that scene and that whole interaction, what did that signify?
So I wasn't involved with those scenes or that storyline, but when I was watching it, to me, it was uncomfortable. And it's exactly what you're saying, this random overflowing of superficial kindness, sympathy for some of those people who thought that was the way they could make something better, but it's ultimately so ineffectual and also makes other people uncomfortable, made Doc uncomfortable, because why now? Why does it take this to make you be civil to me or just see me? And the oranges, I don't know if there was a specific symbolism, but it felt like the neighbor coming over and maybe overcompensating. One of the vibes I felt about that scene that was so harrowing was this attempt at normalcy. No, everything's fine. We're in our little enclave. We're not affected directly by this. So, yeah, it's bad. Orange juice, I thought that was very effective. There was a surreality to it that I thought was fascinating.
Well, I think I got to give it to Gina. The oranges were particularly something Gina was doing, and it's a very literary thing that I think she was doing. So the oranges were a thematic thing throughout. You noticed that, right? Like Donald not being able to efficiently peel the orange, thinking it tastes nasty. So he has a kind of inherent disdain for any kind of sympathy. If we were to take I'm going deep on metaphors, but if we were to take the orange as a metaphor, and then when we are introduced to V, isn't she cutting oranges?
The sports agent in his kitchen,
There's oranges there. Yeah,
chips his tooth.
Right.
On an orange. Yeah.
Right.
So
As well.
And Gina could probably tell you very succinctly what that means to her. Also, it's a Los Angelian. It's just a thing that kind of instantly takes you either to Florida or here. But I think about oranges here. I think about Chinatown. You think about all that cinematically. So, yeah, she had a real intention in that. And then he's smashing the oranges at the end. Like you said, your kind of fake sympathy and empathy is, it's what's gutturally going on with him. And he's angry about what he's about to become.
And even if it's not intentionally fake, it is deeply insufficient.
Yeah.
And too late in so many ways.
Yeah.
We talked about the kitchen scene that derives from the masquerade party. We got a couple party questions here because that's a big part of this program in this series. We'll start with the masquerade party.
Listen, there's plenty of overpaid, underfucked men in there. So if the spirit moves you to get a little frisky, there are worse places to catch a sugar daddy.
I don't need a sugar daddy. That's how they get control of you.
No, you don't need a sugar daddy, which is why you're boosting baby doll dresses from Old Navy. You have to bargain with the devil if you want to get ahead.
V, the character, clearly out of her element, sort of learning what the big leagues are about, for lack of a better term. What was that scene like in terms of shooting it? I mean, it gets reasonably raunchy, for grown folks in the room, but I think it tells a story of what people think about what goes on in Hollywood, especially with recent news of various people who may or may not end up behind bars in real actual life. What was that scene like in terms of shooting it, in terms of getting it done, and what you were trying to achieve with the scene?
Well, I think everything that is done is referenced from reality. There's a particular type of party that was going on around Los Angeles at that time, and they were swinging parties, and they were known, but they were done by this guy. There's like a Vanity Fair article about it. So that was our inspiration.
I like the story.
Yeah. That's the inspiration, is that these things really did exist, and they might become an entree for a girl who is looking for a quick way to meet the right people that are going to ascend her in town. And I guess at heart, again, speaking back to Midwestern Protestant values, Lutheran school, K through 12, like it's hard for me to, that's not a type of filmmaking that.
You blushed a little bit? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I did. And then I just kind of surrendered to it, which I had to, because the story, you have to become the story as you're shooting it, and went with it. And since it had to have verisimilitude to what we had read about these sex parties, these swinging parties, we just went for it. But shooting those kind of things, to me, is like doing stunts. Everybody's on board. We all gather around. This is what's going to happen. Does anybody have any trepidations or nervousness about safety? Emotional safety now, particularly in the day and age we live in. Okay, this is going to happen. Very specific about what's going to be happening, who's going to do this. And we also hired actors who were comfortable with or had done that kind of filmmaking before in some regard. So that was helpful to us. It was grueling for us as well because it was a night shoot. And so we were out at this party, living kind of physically in this party as the sun. We shot it in reverse, but I think we shot the last scene at dusk and then went into as far as we could until the sun came up. But yeah, it was pretty intense.
And that's a huge scene with all those, so much coverage and so much angles. Like getting so many angles and getting the choreography right with all the background folks. And that's got to be, especially when you're racing the sun. Yeah. It's not a studio. You can't go 16 hours.
No. Yeah, racing the sun and those extras.
I loved so much of the episode. But one of the things I particularly loved was Yvonne, as Deja, got to really, really take off. Such an amazing presence from the first time we see her at the food truck.
Yeah.
With V.
There's a party going on tonight. Some reality producers there. You should come.
I have an early call tomorrow, and I'm kind of broken out.
You want to be famous? Find the people who can make things happen in this town. Drunk at a party. Make a good impression. Someday the stars will cater to you.
Her energy is so different from anybody else's in the episode, and it's like this guiding force, this benevolent guiding force, kind of. And it's fun to see her and then how that relationship changes over the years. But Yvonne just knocks it out of the park, I think.
She does. She was a real find. We all fell in love with her.
Kind of hard not to.
And that's her, I think. Just the physicality, the way she leaned into the window. there were no notes to give. She was just, I represent the life you want, and this is what you can do.
And I see you.
Yeah, and I see, yeah.
That active.
Yeah, it was really genuine.
You see it happening across her eyes in such a short moment. Just like, oh, I know you. I see you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be like that. It's Christmas. It's a party. You haven't even done Secret Santa yet. Okay, I'm your Santa. I got you a Wii Fit.
I do want to ask you, what was your favorite thing about playing that character, and how did it evolve in terms of Roeser himself from 2008 to 2014?
This is probably going to sound like a bullshit answer, but one of my favorite things, really, perhaps my favorite thing about playing that character was getting to work with Ed and Lawrence so closely, getting to work with Kevin and Gina and the other directors. There was so much room for, not improv exactly, but they seemed to delight in whatever we brought to the table. And a lot of shows aren't like that. A lot of shows, it's like, no, yeah, that's sure funny, but stick on this line. And so that sense of play was really fun.
Natural light, am I right? These both looked right at home.
I'd shot with Lawrence already, but it was the first time where we could actually get some physical comedy in, where we're standing. I'm like, come up, and I'm kind of, hey, Doc, we're buddies, right? Because we work here. Everything's great. And it's so obvious he doesn't want to be with me. And Kevin threw in this great note on the fly. He's like, you're standing there awkwardly. Both of you want to leave, but you don't know who's going to go first. And so there's this start, stop, zip, zip, and then Andy just like bolts. And there was something about that scene, which we shot in like week 2 or 3, that kind of crystallized Andy for me in a different way. Just that I am going to be comfortable. No, I'm not. I'm out.
It also was such an important scene, always testing the boundaries of tone in what the show could be and how funny it could be. And that really opened up, it's like, if it bends, that kind of thing, like we really bent a lot of stuff.
I discovered that there's a lot of fun to be had in playing a character who really, really wants to be respected and just has to constantly deal with the fact that he's not. Yeah. And his choice is to smile through that.
This is sort of off topic, but there's something about that character that reminds me of a mix of who William H. Macy and Philip Seymour Hoffman play in Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
Like, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and especially with the whole Southern California kind of freewheeling vibe, that's where I feel like he kind of sits in.
That's interesting. I kind of see a Ned Flanders and a Smithers
sure.
cross too.
That's funny.
He eats shit every day. And his choice and where he's got himself into is that he's like, please, can I have some more? This is great. Yum.
There is that archetypical person in every work situation, I think. I mean, every show I've ever been on, there's that person, whether they're trying to pleasantly be Lee Marvin in a filmmaking experience where they're the holder of the purse strings, that person is usually like that. They're in this kind of feet in both worlds, trying to relate to you creatively as a director, but always kind of like, and so they're like, yeah, it's a brilliant idea, but how can you do it for cheap? Or like, that's just really, everyone feels and they recognize that guy as a human being that they're dealing with at some part of their life, I think. Whether you're checking into a hotel or talking to the dude at Firestone's, you're going to get that guy.
I was just saying, my blood pressure's going up right now just thinking about all the people I've encountered like that in my life. Kelly, for you, physical comedy was a real part of this in terms of the emotion that you got to display through various movements. None of them were athletic, let's be honest about that, but they were expressive. Could you tell me a little bit more about that process?
Oh, that hurts.
I mean, you weren't tasked with it, so I'm not saying
there was
you can't,
a certain athleticism in pretending to be so far from an actual athlete. Let's go with it. Let's go with
that's
that.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, that's yeah. Anyway, I'm not a physical comedian normally, but there were scenes that were staged in a way and written in a way where it was just funny. And one was trudging up in my suit, half off because I'm sweating like crazy, trudging up this giant hill in Malibu to try to find out what Donald wants to do about this tape that's just been dropped.
Mr. Sterling. What are you doing here? If I don't answer your calls, it's because I don't want to talk to you. Yeah, I know. That's why I can't.
And he's sitting there sunbathing nude with a newspaper across his junk. And that's just funny. Because how you... Oh, hello. It's you. Yeah, okay. Hope you're using sunscreen. But there's this tape. And I love that scene also because this is in the writing, he never can just come out and say, this is bad, we need to do something about it. It's like, hey, I think maybe you ought to listen. So there was insight into his character, both physically and in what he couldn't say or the way he phrased things. And then one other scene I remember that shot with Kevin, I think we did it 15 different ways, where Andy's running through the locker room because he's just found out. And he passes Doc and DeAndre, and Doc calls his name, and he stops, and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" He's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, get in my steps." And he takes off again. But some of it we had him like slide out of the picture and come back in. Some we had him slam into the wall. And through it all, he just had to be like, "Hey, great, I'm smiling, thumbs up."
Can we say getting my steps in or something?
Getting my steps in, yeah. It was just such an insight into his character.
Not for nothing, but you had hair. Tell me about the transformation physically that it took to get into that role, never mind research you did on the character himself.
Growing that head of hair every day was so hard. It was probably, you think I'm not athletic, It took some skills.
Yeah, the handstand.
The handstand, it was all upside down shit,
The gravity chamber.
Gravity boots. It was great, actually. And this is the second show where I've had a major role where I've had to multiple times sit in the chair before working. It didn't take that long. It was about 45 minutes. And Teresa is an amazing wig master. And I loved sitting with her. And it was kind of this chill time, especially if it was early in the morning, like you sort of chill into what you're about to do. And gradually, as the piece was glued to my head, the character starts to come out again. And it was fun because Ed has a piece as well, and he would come in, and it was fun to chit-chat with him before we were about to do our weird, like deeply fucked up father-son relationship.
Okay, it is time for the lightning round before we wrap here. Short, quick answers. I'm asking you all to understand that you understood the assignment.
Did you just call us talkative?
Yeah.
Whatever comes to your mind right off the top of your head. Starting with you, Kelly. What was your first job as a teenager or a young person?
Dishwasher at my grandfather's restaurant.
Golf caddy.
Coolest place you've ever shot a scene?
Malibu, probably.
The favelas of Medellin.
Oh, Jesus. How can I compete with that?
Do you have like a walk-up song, a mixtape, something you do to get fired up or get your creative juices flowing?
Dry the Rain by the Beta Band is a big one for me. Everybody's got to look that up, but it's awesome. Or Heroes by David Bowie.
Okay.
Probably Brand New Flavor, Craig Mack, or Tones on Tails, and I don't know the name of the title of the song, but yeah, I go with Craig Mack.
All right.
Yeah.
What is an underrated show or flick that you don't think gets talked about enough?
News Radio and South Central.
Nice.
Wow. Well, I'm watching this show called Deadlock right now that I like a lot. And I don't know if anybody's seen it, but there's a spectacular couple of actors in that, and it's a spectacularly fun show. Underrated films. Something Wild by Jonathan Demme. It's not underrated. It's just
it's not talked about that much. It's
great.
great.
People don't. It's very important. It's supposed to be lightning round.
I was just about to say.
It's a Tarantino film before Tarantino was even around.
That's right.
It's a cross genre film.
News Radio, by the way, banger. That's a good call.
Right.
All right, last one, boys. What's your favorite basketball team?
Portland Trailblazers.
I can't do one because I live so many Pistons. Detroit Pistons.
There you go.
Detroit basketball.
Yeah, that's right.
And shout out to my man Bill Walton.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Westwood legend. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was a blast.
All right.
This episode was hosted by Clinton Yates and produced by Megan Coyle. Our associate producer is Gus Navarro. Our line producer is Kat Sankey. Sound design by Ryan Ross Smith and original music by Hannes Brown. Preeti Varathan is our head of audio. Our head of development is Kati Fernandez. Our head of talent relations is Chandra Kamak. Our executive producers for 30 for 30 and ESPN Films are Marcia Cook, Brian Lockhart, Burke Magnus, and Heather Anderson. Our ESPN audio team includes Megan Judge and Devin McGowan. Special thanks to Rosalind Bibby at FX and Greg Bergman at ESPN LA Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Episodes of Let's Talk Clipped drop every Tuesday until July 2nd.